Hello, Sarah here, your DIY home gal, and today I'm going to walk you through how to replace an interior door using a couple of Ryobi jigs just to make this super DIY friendly. So we'll start by removing the doorknob from the old door as well as removing the old hinges. And then once you've got that door taken down, you can take both the old door and the new door outside, set up some workhorses, and then lay the old door on top of the new door. Basically, we're just going to be using this as a template to see whether or not we need to cut down the new door to fit. On most hollow core doors, you can cut up to about 1 inch off the ends and each side. So I usually like to split the difference and then take a little off both the top and the bottom. I've got to shave a little off the width too. So I'm just going to be cutting down the side that the hinges are going to sit on. Oh, also trace where your door handle sits because this is going to come in handy later. Okay, now for this next part, you can clamp your door down. I just used a really heavy bucket of paint and sat that on top. Either way, you're just going to want to make sure that your door is not going to go anywhere. So I only had a small amount of material to remove from each end. So I ended up just using a planer and planed it right down to those pencil marks that we made. But if you're needing to take off more material, say like 1/2 inch or more, it might be a good idea to make your initial cut with a circular or a table saw and cut right above your pencil mark so you can still see it, and then take it down to that mark with a pass or two of a planer just to get rid of any saw marks. Also, just FYI, if I were to do this again, I would actually plane starting at each end and then stopping in the middle rather than going all the way from end to end. Only because I did get some material chipping out at the end. Not a big deal, I just filled that in with some wood filler, but if you can avoid that, you may as well. Once you're all done cutting down your new door, then I like to lay the old door on top of it again. For one, just so I can verify that the new door is now the same size as the old one, but also so that I can mark out where the hinges should go. So to do this, you can just use a set square and line that up to one side of the hinge mortise for the old door, and then mark straight down following that line with a sharp pencil. I also like to draw a curve in the corner, just indicating which way the hinge should be facing, because it wouldn't be super fun to accidentally mortise your hinge the wrong way. Then you can just go ahead and repeat that same thing for the rest of the hinges, and once you're done, you can move your door back down to the ground to cut them out. Now, to do this, I always use my Ryobi hinge mortise jig just because it makes cutting out the hinge mortises super easy and fail-proof. Start by adjusting your router cutting depth using the gauge on the side, and then you'll also want to make adjustments based on the size of your hinges. And then lastly, if your hinges have a 1/4 inch radius, you can keep the corners on the square setting. But if your hinges have a 5/8 inch radius, just pop these little bits out and flip them over to the curved side. Once that's all good to go, just pop your hinge jig on the door and line it up to those marks that we just made and make your cut. If you have experience using a router and a really steady hand, of course it's not 100% necessary to use a jig, but I don't know, this thing cost me like $50 and I've done 5 doors in my house with it already, and the cuts have turned out perfect every time, so I have no regrets. Okay, now we can move this party back inside to install some new hinges. So I chose these matte black ones to replace the old ones that looked like they've been painted over about a zillion times. And then finally, we'll go ahead and rehang the door back in that old opening. And you're going to know pretty quickly here if you lined up your hinges properly. But if you've been following along up to this point, you should be okay. You guys know by now that I love me a jig if it makes my life easier. So we're going to be using another one to drill the hole for the door handle and the latch. So the first thing you'll want to do is slide this latch bit on. And then here's the reason why I told you to mark out the old door handle, because you can adjust the position of the hole on the jig and then make sure it lines up perfectly. And then to align it vertically, you'll want to move the jig up and down until that attachment is sitting right in the center of the door latch. Once you've got everything all lined up, you'll secure the jig in place with a couple of screws and give it the old shake test to make sure it's secured on there well. And then from there, it's pretty straightforward. You'll just use the drill bits that come with the kit to drill your holes, and the jig is going to ensure that you drill nice and straight. When you're drilling the hole for the doorknob, I would recommend that you stop once you see the drill bit coming out the backside, and then finish drilling the hole from the opposite side just to make sure you don't get a blowout. And then we're just going to drill the hole for the door latch, and that's it. Easy as that. Your latch and your doorknob will be lined up perfectly. Okay, last jig, I promise. You're going to take your door latch jig now and stick it in the latch hole we just made. Grab a hammer and just start banging away. I like to visualize the face of my enemies. I find that really helps here. Okay, great. And then once you've cut the depth of your latch assembly, you'll just flip over your jig to the front where there's a built-in chisel, and then you can chisel out the material you just cut. Then we'll just finish up by installing the new door handle and latch. Again, I just went with a matte black to match the hinges. And last but not least, we'll just screw in the new strike plate, which, by the way, this comes with the door handle. I made the mistake of buying one separately the first time I did a door, so don't be like me. And that's a wrap on the new door install. I hope this helped. Leave any questions you have in the comments, and see you in the next one.